With the Donald Trump whiplash, a sudden policy change after days of bluster. Now, there is real news tonight, and it is about Iran. But I want to take a moment to walk through a wider context, because we've seen the same pattern in play on those big promised ICE raids that the president walked back. For the raids, it was a governing threat time to add heat to his 2020 kickoff, using the power of ICE and the feds to basically hype his own campaign rollout of immigration. Now then, by this weekend, Donald Trump all but admitted that was essentially a head fake, part of this pattern of head fakes. And this is important to understand the Iran news tonight, because sometimes you have a president literally creating the appearance of a problem so that he alone can solve it. Now, it often begins with some kind of tough talk, then a reaction, concern over the public plan announced by a president, but often in the end, it doesn't happen. So there was the Iran strike. You remember that, of course. There are these ICE raids that were canceled this weekend. Or more recently, there were those Mexico tariffs. Tweet, hype, but then fold. And it's more than simply playing for distraction, something that Donald Trump has been doing as long as he's been an entertainer. Because often, I want to point out to you tonight, the message itself can be the political payoff. Donald Trump's base wants to hear about ICE raids, about people being round up. So he gave them days of that message and perception. He may have already decided nothing was going to actually happen, but he gave his people some of the politics they wanted to hear. Now, if you watch The Beat, you may know we have an explicit news policy of trying to avoid some of the distractions. We don't cover, for example, random tweets. We have a much higher bar for ever putting a Trump tweet on the screen for you. We try to focus on what's actually happening. But of course, if a White House is marching towards war with Iran, and there are leaks about that really happening, or mass arrests of people in America, well, that becomes much harder to ignore out of hand, even if you know about what I'm calling this head fake pattern. Now to the news. Donald Trump announcing today what he is calling hard-hitting sanctions against Iran, and then he says it, quote, would have happened anyway. Take a look.
Iran has been a very dangerous player, very bad player. They're a nation of terror, and we won't put up with it. I would certainly send troops if we need them. Iran made a big mistake. They made a very bad mistake.
Okay?
Mr. President, how will you respond?
You'll find out.
Are you willing to go to war with Iran?
You'll find out. You'll find out. I'm not looking for war. And if there is, it'll be obliteration like you've never seen before.
America's half-cocked president says he was cocked and loaded for a strike on Iran last night, but he called it off at the last minute.
Cocked and loaded. This is a president who knows about narrative, who knows about staging and casting, and he's trying to cast himself as the hero for calling off the very thing that he started. He is the one who threatened that airstrike. Although, of course, there was a downed drone. That's a real thing to deal with, but he was the one talking about escalation. Or now take the ICE raids with this frame in mind. Donald Trump was the one who vowed to carry them out. Here's the head fake.
The president promised massive immigration arrests.
The new plans for a large-scale ICE enforcement operation.
They're going to start next week, and when people come into our country and they come in illegally, they have to go out. They will be removed from the country. It starts, during the course of this next week.
The president pulling back on that order to start those deportation raids.
Trump says it's because Democrats asked him for the delay for negotiations.
And there's more evidence of the bluster coming to an end with no action. On the Mexico tariffs, there was a lot of tough talk. There was a countdown to this punishment. And it all ended, of course, with a head fake for a deal that Mexico and others said was largely already in place, meaning not a result of the threats. So Trump gets the red meat to the base, then knowingly not acting on the planned threat. Now, a lot of people, let's be clear, think it's a very good thing that we're not at war with Iran today, or there wasn't an extra strike. A lot of the humanitarians and other immigration folks we talk to say if these ICE arrests didn't happen, that's a good thing. And in the markets, there was a lot of people excited that there weren't new tariff wars. But what are we to do with all of this, especially when you have a president deliberately stoking chaos and fear to position himself to be the one to relieve it, but of course only momentarily? I can tell you that the president on the ICE raids is asking Congress to act within a few weeks, or he says he'll act again. Is that another head fake? Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.